Hi everyone, this is your favorite friend, Jay or Jaylan Salah, as you formerly know her, film critic at Geek Vibes Nation and In Session Film. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing director Vera Brunner-Sung, producer Yang, and star April Charlo. Um, Talking to them about Bitterroot, a film about Hmong people living, I would say, simple lives, finding connection, self-identification, but it's an amazing insight into the Hmong community without ostracizing or making an otherness of another community. Like it's a way for us to go inside a community and see people living as people, like living normal lives and at the same time trying to find themselves. So thank you all for talking to me, first of all. Okay. So my question for Vera would be, what inspired you to start this project? Why did you want to tell this particular story?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having us.
You're welcome.
So yeah, the beginning of this project really goes back to when I moved to Missoula, Montana. I lived in California and I moved to Montana and I had some culture shock moving to such a really different place from what I was used to. And that experience really connects me back to something that that's always been a part of my identity and my creative voice, like people whose experiences are kind of on the edge of what is considered normal or dominant. My parents are both immigrants, and I'm an only child, and I grew up in the Midwestern United States, and so that experience of like being in between cultures is really strong for me and something I'm always sensitive to and aware of. So when I learned of the Hmong community in Missoula, after I moved there, I kind of felt this connection and began getting to know people. And actually, the first person who I got to know was Yang, who grew up in Montana. And so later, a few years later, um, as a filmmaker, I thought about like, yeah, could we set a story here? Could we make a project here? Making films for me is all about connection, connecting with stories, connecting with people behind the camera, in front of the camera. And so it was really through the partnership with Yang that the story kind of grew into something, doable, and the collaboration between us and then our growing team and the community in Missoula became possible.
What I loved about this project is the details because when you see amulets and incense, and these are like things even in my culture. So when you see a different culture, and I'm not Western, I'm like Egyptian. So when you see a different culture where you guys share the same things, the same set of ideals or things that kind of like connect you to yourself. I loved it and I felt very connected to it. And I love that cinema brings us together and kind of like makes us feel, wow, we are all the same. So I want to know how, Vera, first of all, and then I want to ask Yang, Vera, how did you come up with even all the details? Like the details that make it feel like this is authentic, this is not made up, this is not someone seeing something superficially. And then I will ask Yang.
Yeah, and I think April will also have thoughts about this too. We've talked about this as well. As someone who I'm Korean American, mixed race, like I'm not a Hmong person and I didn't grow up in Montana. And so for me, the idea was let's tell a really authentic story that's really deeply rooted in this place with this community. That means it had to be all about kind of listening, creating space to hear and learn like what would happen, right? So we have this character. The character is this kind of character that I always identify with, and I always seem to come back to as this person who's kind of pushing away from community and culture and has to kind of find their way back. And so what would that person look like in this community in Missoula, in this particular place? Like, what would he be resisting? What would be normal in his world? And how would he be, outside of it? So all of these things came from conversations. They came from like me learning, me, becoming friends with people and listening and sharing stories and experiences. So even down to, when we were on set, right? Yang was our production designer. He knows this place and, practices inside and out. And so it was all about just like making room and space for other people to fill in, the details. And my job was really to just make sure that it was, that I wasn't kind of like pushing it too far in some way that made it become disconnected from what was true and right for the particular story, if that makes sense.
Definitely, definitely. So, Yang, I want to ask you, like, what did you add to the spirit of this story? What did you ensure as a producer and as, like part of the community to make it feel authentic and not forced and real and actually about people and not about us just othering the community? And also want to ask April.
Yeah, I think for me and Vera, it was a lot of like communication. I feel like people got to see this final product, but it was years and years and years in the making. Even from like the first initial conversation that Vera and I had about like the amulet, like how it would look like, right? And the conversations behind that. But even like the conversation that went beyond me and Vera and what I had to bring back to my Hmong Missoula community. Was like very important. So I think Vera covered it, but I think the most important thing that we did in the process of pre-production or prepping for this was the conversations we did have with the Missoula Hmong community, ensuring that we got it correct in a sense, right? There is no right or wrong, but we wanted the community to feel comfortable with what we wrote. We wanted the spiritual aspect to be grounded and be correct for that particular community. So again, just the communication that we developed with the community and the conversation that Vera till this day continues to have with the Missoula home community as well.
Okay, so April, first of all, I loved Eddie so much, and I want to know your approach to
Oh,
the character, and also what did you bring to it? Like you have the character and it's on paper. What do you, as an actress, bring to it? And how were you approached for this character? What drew you to her?
yeah. So they needed a Native American, and I'm Native American. I where they filmed where the movie was filmed, and then the idea of where the film was being filmed is in this place called the Bitterroot, which is how the movie is called the Bitterroot. And so the Bitterroot is actually my ancestral homeland. And so my people were forced up to this reservation that I live on now. So when Vera, they were looking to cast a Native American woman, and they had a friend who's also a filmmaker who's from here. And so they asked her, and my name just got thrown in the mix. I am not an actress. I've never acted in anything.
Wow.
I've done yeah, I've done things here and there, like where I got on stage and did a live storytelling about my postpartum depression at one point. So that kind of, got me comfortable with that kind of presence. Like I'm an avid movie watcher. I'm very critical on acting and good,
Okay.
good writing and good things, so like that. So it was really interesting when I was telling Vera too, I was just like, this is going to be interesting because, like I am not going to be spared of my criticism, you know? So, it was interesting because, my personality isn't Eddie's. Eddie is very reserved. Eddie's been through a lot and is kind of, shut down, kind of awkward. And so it was interesting to like, like to fit into that. And what I love too about the movie after seeing it, because I wasn't on set I was only on set for my scenes. And to see the movie, I felt the same thing that you did, where I was like, wow, our cultures are so similar. And our ceremonies, even though like, our connection to creator and spirit is, like, we offer smoke. We offer offerings when we go and harvest foods and plants and, and our traditional roots and berries. And I don't know what happened. Where? Oh, sorry. I'm
Okay.
coming back.
It's okay.
I just got a thing that said something about leaving. I'm coming back. There. I
Okay.
got this big, like, you guys just disappeared. Sorry.
No problem. We'll edit everything. Don't worry. Just
Okay,
be there.
good. Yeah, because
We will
I was like,
do
what
everything.
happened? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was really beautiful to see on screen. And I'm really proud of this movie. I think it's beautiful that, like the acting of Song and the mother and son acting of it. But that was the coolest thing for me, was to see how similar our cultures and our ceremonies are. So acting in it was really interesting. I would do a scene and Vera would say, I'd get done and I'd be ready for her to, come in and be like, could you like do, could you, and I'd turn to Vera and Vera would say, well, how did that feel? And I was like, I don't know. How did it look? Like,
Yes.
so it was really an interesting experience for me. And and then Vera would say, yeah, that was good. And I'd be like, okay, next scene. So it was really, like it was really interesting for me. And I was, it was fun. This whole experience has been, really, really fun for me. So that's how I got involved.
Oh, okay. So something came up to mind now, because then we have April, she's Native American. I'm Egyptian and I'm African, and we have a Korean American and we have Yang. So
Yeah.
sometimes we always fall into the pitfall of people are like, but you don't look, or, oh, are you sure you are? Or you are not that.
Mm.
Like sometimes I get you're not that African. And it just baffles me sometimes, which is why I love movies and filmmaking and conversations, because then you get to express yourself and tell them there's no one way to see a person from a certain community or from a certain background or from a certain heritage, because I am me and you're you, and Vera is Vera and Yang is Yang, and we're all each belong to our respective cultures, respective heritage, and at the same time, we represent ourselves individually. So I want to know, how do you think through art can we make, because there is not a single way to see an Egyptian or a Native American or a Korean American or someone from the Hmong community. So how do you think through filmmaking and art, and I'm asking all of you if you'd like to contribute, how do you think through art we get this individuality and at the same time staying true to the heritage and the culture behind the person?
Yeah, I think for me, it was very much so understanding that it's okay to not represent everyone, right? For Bitterroot specifically, it was about a Hmong man who lives in Missoula, Montana, very specific, right? And so when we wrote this character, it wasn't honed in onto like a specific person. I also want to like clarify that it doesn't sum up the entire Missoula Hmong community, but it's an aspect, right? On the house that he lives in, I was fortunate enough to dress it. That house was representative of the house that I lived in as a kid, but it might not look like someone else who lives in Missoula's house. But it was true to who I was. And so then we built this world based off of, I mean, staying true to one aspect, but again, not worrying about representing every component because this is just one singular film in hopes that other films that follow or that continue will do the same thing that's true to their narrative.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I think we just need more representations by people who really know, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's I think it can be a really difficult thing when there aren't very many representations because, well, for obvious reasons of like, audiences and understanding people themselves or, people that they don't know. But also for the artists because you feel that pressure of like, oh my gosh, I am making one of very few, representations and that puts a lot of pressure on the work and the people who are making it. So what we hope for Bitterroot is that it's yes, it's a film that anyone can come to and have an experience, hopefully an emotional experience to connect with these characters, what they're going through. That it's that people in Missoula, Hmong people feel seen in some way. Maybe not all aspects of their lives. Again, it's like a really specific story, but that it also is supporting and really kind of an investment in Hmong American filmmakers and actors, talent, so that it's a useful experience having been a part of this project that creates even more momentum, because there are so many talented artists who are Hmong, who are making work already. So we just want to like contribute to that as well. Oh, you're muted. But I also wanted to say, like, thank you for this question, because it's such a great question.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Okay, so my question now is like for Vera and for April. Dealing with kids and animals is usually like a hassle when you have it in a movie. This is what I hear. Like it's always the most difficult thing. And then we have a dog, like a very beautiful dog for Eddie. I want to know, how did you form this bond with the dog? As a director, how did you give the directions? How were you able to contain it? And for April, how did you form this connection? Because it felt so genuine and just so wonderful.
Marvin, the dog.
Marvin
I
the dog.
can tell you about casting him. We looked at several dogs from across the state of Montana, and we went with a non-acting dog. I think it was his first. Do you all remember? It was like his first movie.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, and Lizzie, his human, Lizzie Archer, she just, had a really great relationship with this dog and knew how to get him to do things. And she, I think, taught, right, April and Wah, like, just what to do, which was mostly April, like, holding turkey, cold cuts.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was really interesting. This dog was really, I didn't have to really carry anything. I don't know. I don't know. Me and the dog just got along right off the bat. And he was a really good dog. The part of the hard part is that we got on set at like 8 or 9 or something, and then the day was so hot and we had to hike up this mountain. Oh my goodness, it was such a challenge just to hike up the mountain. I felt so bad for the crew carrying all their equipment, because it was literally like a stray shot up the mountain. And so me and the dog are sitting there, and if you see the movie again, you can see how red my face is. And the dog was just as exhausted. And so getting him to he just wanted to lay down. He was done, and so getting him to get up. So we had to get we got some lunch meat, I think pulled it out of like the sandwiches or something. But yeah, I don't, he was just really easy to, to deal with. And he would come, and Vera let me name him. So I named him Kusum, which is star. So in my language, so we named him Kusum, which is star. And yeah, and he would come to that. Like it was, yeah, it was interesting. Like he was like, he's a natural.
Wow.
But you're like a dog person, like dogs like you
person
as well, and you like dogs, so that probably helped as well. But yeah, he just started coming to like this other name.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very cooperative.
And he's like, okay, I'm coming. I'm acting. He was great. He was, yeah. Like when he ran off screen and I was like, come on, let's go. And then he like took off. And so he's off camera, and I was, and I was just like, just keep walking, and hopefully he, and he came back in the shot. And then that's why I was like, you're such a good boy. I was like, thank God you got back in the shot, like kind of thing. So yeah.
Wow, seriously, this is filmmaking magic. And this is like, I have to ask you, April, like, are you pursuing acting professionally? Because you are a natural, you look like amazing. Now that I know that this is your first time, I'm like, okay, we have to get April in more films, more roles. Are you sure you're gonna do this like only
I just
once?
got goosebumps. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, because I don't know where to go. Like, I don't, like, where's all the agents? I don't know. Like, I don't, yeah, somebody suggested something. I'm definitely open. I was on TikTok and there was a tarot card reader, and I asked if I was going to act in another movie, and
Wow.
the card said yes. So,
okay.
yeah, I'm definitely open. Like Vera made it a very awesome, the whole cast, like I just, Gia came up to our powwow. I offered everyone to come up. We were having a powwow at the same time there was a shoot. And so Gia came up, and so me and Gia have this really awesome bond, and where we just sat there and just talked about our cultures while watching my culture because we, Native people, we have a powwow where there's our traditional dancing and singing, and it's a huge event, and it's, so
Wow.
yeah. So I'm definitely open. Let's see what we can do. Yeah.
Definitely. I can say that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. My question for all of you. There is a scene where you do it and then you finish it and you feel deep down, whether you're directing or you're producing or you're acting it, and you feel energized, you feel this magic inside you. You are making a film or you're making art in general. And then there is the most difficult scene, which could for a viewer be a very regular scene, but it was so difficult. Like now that April told me, okay, I can see the hike and how she got red faced, then of course this was a difficult scene for her. So tell me about a very difficult scene that may have even not seemed that difficult shot on her in the movie, and at the same time the scene where you felt inside you, yes, this is the art that I was creating all my life.
Well, I mean, when I think of the magical scene, and I don't know, Yang, if you would agree with this as well for you, if you're thinking about this one too, is when Q, who plays the mom, when she speaks her prayer at the altar, because the entire set, like, just I don't know, it was a very kind of, I don't want to say magical, but kind of magical moment. Everything got very quiet and everybody was just sort of spellbound by her lines and her performance. And there were a few things that she kind of had to say for the script in there, but she improvised most of that. And so, yeah, so it just, I think we did maybe 2 takes, I think, but that was a really special moment. I don't know, Yang, did you, were you thinking of that one, or do you have another one?
Yeah, no, I really love that scene. I agree with Vera. I think even like being there, you had to just be there behind the camera, and you had to just listen to the words that Q was saying as song, because it very much so was like improvised with the guidance of like what Vera had written. But yeah, it was so natural. It was so heartfelt. And I mean, I lived, it's like lived experience, right? You hear your parents say, doing the same thing growing up. So when you hear this character saying very similar words of like wisdom and guidance, it's like chills. So yeah, I totally agree with Vera on that scene. It was beautiful. It was the lighting was very dim that day. I remember. Yeah, it was like we were just there. We were present with the song and her words. So yeah.
Yeah, like half of the crew understood what she was saying, and the other half didn't, because some people understand and speak Hmong, and other people didn't. So even for the people who didn't understand the language, it felt like really powerful. So, yeah,
I want to ask
yeah,
April about her magical scene.
Yeah, I just want to like reiterate that scene, watching it,
Spectacular.
and I fell in love with the language, and I speak, my indigenous language, and to hear the Hmong and and how they draw out the syllables, and we do that too in our prayers. Oh, I got to sit next to her in the movie, and I just wanted to keep elbowing her and be like, "You're amazing. You're amazing. Like you're amazing. I was like, you're going somewhere. You're gonna go somewhere." Like she's incredible. Like she's got to keep going. Like with her acting, she was phenomenal. Um, yeah, I guess I don't know. There's a couple scenes like so magical. Well, the wood chopping scene, obviously, is
I
a
knew
fun.
you were going to say that.
Well,
that's it.
I was hoping you would say that.
Channeled
I
it.
was hoping you were going to say
You
that.
literally just channeled that, because I was going to go with the end scene. I was going to go with the gun scene. And then I was like, oh, the wood chopping scene, So yeah, so I grew up chopping wood, like, and so it's something that, and it was so funny when she asked me, well, and then also like, I don't know, I accidentally went viral on TikTok for chopping wood one time. And so like when Vera was like, do you think you could like chop some wood? And I literally was like, like when you try to keep a straight face because you don't want to laugh, and you're like, I can chop some wood. Yes, like, can I see your axe? Like we got it, like, so yeah, so that was fun. Yeah,
can I just add,
so
like, I mean, that was like not scripted either. We had these vignettes of her doing chores around the house, and then needed like the whatever we had written, I think it was like cleaning the gutters or something like that, was
yeah.
we were not going to do that. We're not going to put her on a ladder. So then there was all this wood at this house, right, stacked up. And our location manager said he had an axe that he could get. And so he went and found an axe, and April said she was up for it. So that was,
Yeah.
those are beautiful moments, right? When everything just sort of comes, you don't know what you're going to do, and then they come together
Everything
like
comes
that.
together. Yes, exactly. This is why it's like the beauty of filmmaking. Okay, so the most difficult scene, or the scene that you feel is difficult, and maybe I wouldn't have noticed that, or I would.
I just want to like add to what April said earlier. Like the first few days of production, we were on the mountain, and it was like in the 90s. It was hot. It was hard to get up there. We were all just starting out, we just getting to know how to work together, um, and we had really limited, like our walkie-talkies were too far apart to work, and there was no cell phone service, and it was really hard. So and I think, looking at it now, it just looks like, oh yeah, and then you're just in the forest and you take it for granted, right? But we were up on the mountain, and it had been difficult to figure out where to find burned forest that was not a huge long drive from where we were based in Missoula. And so that, was a really wonderful location because it was relatively close to town, but it was still, the only way up there was walking up. And so people were amazing. They did an amazing job, and people held it together. But it was a hard shoot.
Okay, and Yang,
Yeah,
do you have any? Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with Vera. It was a hard shoot, but for me as a production designer, the hardest part was keeping the morels alive. So we bought morels from the farmers market, and we had to replant them in scenes. And just keeping them alive was hard because they're so high maintenance. They have to like be refrigerated. But then we were out in the mountains for long hours, so making sure we had like ice and coolers to keep the morels alive. That was difficult, but I mean, it worked, and we got to eat some of the morels, and they were amazing, so it paid off.
And so the morels were the mushrooms. I don't know if you caught
Yes,
that.
yeah, yes.
Yes, which is why I'm trying to like, yeah, morale, okay. I love that April is like trying to put me in the mood. I feel like April is gonna be my new ASMR. I'm telling you, like I'm gonna look for you on TikTok and see you chopping wood and going like, yes, girl, do it.
So silly.
This
So
is the
silly.
best. Okay. I just had fun talking to all of you. Thank you so much for talking to me. Bitterroot is an amazing film, immersive film, and I feel now more immersed and more even informed after talking to you all. So thank you for this opportunity, really listening to all your voices and just sharing our cultures, our knowledge, and the beauty of film.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your questions. And
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.